We are going to do something a little bit different because this is a pre-recorded show. We're going to throw to a gameplay segment, but we're staying here. We're going to talk over some gameplay that we previously recorded. And the game we're checking out today is a title called Omno, which I have really enjoyed playing. I actually finished this recently, and what I'm going to do is just start it now so you can see some of the gameplay footage in the background. So Omno is a third-person adventure developed by, well, you had help for some aspects, but mainly developed by one person, solo developer Jonas Mank. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Jonas. I apologise if I'm not. And essentially the game sees you play as this little guy you can see on screen. I think his name might be Omno. It might not be. There's not really any voice acting or anything in the game. It's obviously a little bit lo-fi, being built by one person and one person alone. But it takes you on a journey across several well-realised landscapes, light puzzling, light platforming, and just kind of a nice vibe, a nice explorative vibe, I would say. So I've completed this, and I'm going to try my best not to spoil it, but I will show you what we've done so far. So this is the first level of the game. It's right at the beginning. You'll see, in fact, you'll see several times during this footage. This is taken from the first time I ever played it, so you'll see me struggling with the controls frequently. But you'll see a lot of wildlife like that frog and some more impressive wildlife soon as well.
You'll find out it was a freglet.
Freglet? Is that what it's called? Freglet. Apologies to the freglet community. I've misnamed your species.
Get it right. Come on.
You can see here some of the platforming that you do, and there was a few times actually where I was like, oh, this platforming's really hard, and what I was doing is I was misunderstanding a puzzle that was actually made it really easy. So that's my advice for you to play this. It is on Game Pass, really easy to get into, and it's not very long. If you think the platforming's hard, you're probably doing something wrong. And here's a glimpse of something a little bit bigger than a freglet. This is some sort of ancient turtle that I'm going to ride. A marula is what it's called. If I don't fall off it and drown. Dan, you've played this game. How far did you get? Did you ride the turtle? I hope so.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, did the first couple of levels, and yeah, I did find it very charming. And like yourself, the not quite getting my head around some of the puzzles. If you find yourself like, oh, this is a really interesting part of the map I've managed to get to, maybe you weren't supposed to, and yeah, that's probably an indicator that you've missed something that makes it a bit easier.
Yeah. I've got a title card here, and the music, I would say, is one of the MVPs of this title. It's really, really good, especially how the music kind of builds throughout the game and layers on the kind of different themes as you explore the different locations. Obviously, this bit of the game is quite swampy, but there are lots of bits that don't look anything like this. You know, there's deserts, there's frozen glaciers, and there's even bits where you're like kind of flying around in the sky. So there's definitely a lot of kind of variety to the environments, especially given how short it is. I think it's really good value for what it is, especially if you're playing on Game Pass, where you're basically not paying for it. And all you really do is find things. So each section, and we'll get to one in a second, is comprised of lots of challenges, I would say is maybe the right word for them, to collect these items. And when you collect them, you have to collect 3 in every area to unlock the way forward to the next area. And there's lots of optional ones. And as a structure, you can see one there on the left actually, a little glowing white ball thing. As a structure, I really liked it because a lot of the areas have way more than you need. It's like, hey, here's 9 puzzles you could try and do, but you only need to complete 3 of them to get 3 of these orbs so that you can progress. And let's see, I can't remember what I did here. I can't remember which one I got first, so maybe I tried to get that one. Hopefully I got at least one of them during this video, otherwise it's going to be awkward.
And just there, when you raising your staff, that's kind of like acting as like a compass, is it? It's kind of telling you where...
Yes. So the compass that you can, is exactly like a compass. Shows you where the orbs are, and each section or each area has a meditation spot, and if you meditate, it reveals the whole area on your compass, which is a really useful thing to do. If you can't figure out where stuff is, definitely recommend doing it that way. Find the meditation spot first, and that'll give you more clues about where you could start. And this is maybe a good example of me trying to do some platforming that I'm not entirely sure is the right way to do it, or maybe it was. I did get up there. And here's my first orb. Boom.
Hooray.
One of the other things that I think the game does really well, and I don't want to necessarily spoil all of its tricks and all of its secrets, but each section, as well as being a different kind of environment in terms of the visual look of it, they also introduce different kind of traversal mechanics, and at the beginning it's definitely maybe a little bit slow having to wander around between puzzles and walk between them, but you do unlock the ability to, you know, traverse a lot more smoothly. You get some really cool powers that make exploring the bigger areas a lot easier, a lot quicker.
And it's a part of the progression system as well. Like some of the puzzles you can't do until you've found the abilities.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, little Freglet giving me more light cubes. I'm not sure if the light cubes have a name, but obviously you collect a lot of them. And this is one of those meditation spots which I was talking about. So after I've meditated here, when I compass with my staff afterwards, it'll be a lot clearer about where all the orbs are. I won't have to be right next to them, or I won't have to have seen them. It'll just show me where everything is. So you can see now, I can see where all three of the others are in this section. The other thing you'll find is these little journals, which are maybe the only way that the game story tells through text. Like a lot of the storytelling is a bit more environmental or inferred by kind of the musical cues and the kind of way that the characters act. But every now and then you get these little diaries which give a bit of backstory about this world and why you're here and what you're doing. I think it's probably not too much of a spoiler to say that the game generally is about dealing with moving on and about life and death and what might come after, at least in terms of what this civilization thinks. And what you don't want to do is jump in the green goo. If you do go to the afterlife, don't jump in the green goo, because that sends you straight to hell.
Really soured that touching synopsis you were providing.
I was getting emotional and I had to watch myself die.
It is good, and that is one of the nice things with kind of indie games, that can actually have a message like that and maybe not be so afraid to tackle those kind of subjects and tackle them in creative ways.
Yeah. So you might have noticed a couple of times there I've just managed to collect enough light to get like a burst of speed and look like I'm kind of radiating energy. That is a mechanic that some of the puzzles use, where you have to have a certain amount of energy to unlock certain doors or certain gates, and every animal that you encounter, from the smallest Freglet to the biggest gargantuan dragons that you encounter later on, have ways of giving you light. That usually you just have to walk up to them and either bump into them or press a button when you're near them to interact with them. And there's me dead again. Remember how I was like, oh, the platforming's so light and easy? You know, there definitely are times where you fall into a pit and die.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess, again, it's one of those kind of chill experiences of progression that it doesn't really matter.
Yes, the checkpoints are really generous. I never felt super stuck. I always felt like I had some idea of what I could do next. Another diary here.
I think sometimes you want that. You just want a game that you can not have to fret about, not put any pressure on yourself, and just experience. It's almost kind of a close to a sit-back experience, but with enough engagement to kind of keep you occupied.
Yeah, I felt really relaxed playing this. It was definitely my kind of unwind game. And this is an interesting, this bit over here is kind of where the way forward would be if I'd unlocked it, and the tower I walked past was showing me, and I was a bit too ignorant to know it at the time, it was showing me that I only had 2 out of 3 orbs, and that I needed 3 to really make that area come to life and understand what was going on. But I have collected a lot of energy, which is why I'm glowing, which means that I can do this, pump it all into this pillar, and just instantly claim that orb. Most of the areas have one like that. Like if you really struggle with the puzzles, you're like, I've done 2 out of 3 and I can't figure out any of the others, you could just go around and harvest enough energy to just basically buy one, which can be helpful in some of the more tricky areas. I actually think a lot of the puzzles, especially in the later game, are really quite fun though. They are very rewarding in terms of the way they take the concepts and the traversal mechanics and tie them together.
I always enjoy that with these kind of games where you think like, oh, okay, I've got a dash ability or whatever it is. Well, there's only so many ways you can use that, but you always end up surprised at how far the game designers can kind of exploit those abilities in different ways.
Yeah. And I think what's really surprising about this game is just how comprehensive it is. Like I mentioned that it was developed by one guy primarily, and I'm sure he did have help in a variety of ways. But for a solo dev to put this together, something that's so complete, something that's so sure of itself in terms of its direction and art style and theme, I think is really impressive. And it's really a great example of the sorts of things that you can find on a service like Game Pass, or you can find on PlayStation Plus or on Etch. Just these smaller titles that someone has put maybe years of their life into, and it's.
How did you discover it?
I basically go on the Game Pass app every time I open my Xbox. I'm always interested in stuff that's coming out. I think in this case I had seen some tweets as well from people who had tried it and were interested. And yeah, read some messages from other people who were keen to try it out. I think definitely there was a lot of buzz about that solo developer aspect. Like, one guy made this. How cool is that? And yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised to actually check it out. This is an example of one of those puzzles, and actually probably the ones at the beginning were the ones that gave me the hardest time because I didn't really understand all the mechanics yet in terms of what I was supposed to be doing. But what you're doing here is block pushing to be able to create ridges and ledges that you can use to move around, and then you can use your staff to pick up light and move it between essentially switches that turn things on and off in a certain order. So sometimes there's patterns you have to match, or sometimes there's like a logic to what you've got to do, like you have to do X before you can do Y, and then you have a way to get the power from X to Z.
I'm really enjoying watching it. I can see your confusion in this pre-recorded. Just like the guy is just exhibiting what you. I could picture you with your hand on your face. Now what?
I have a stick. I can put the light in here. Oh, that raises the bridge.
There we go.
And yeah, we won't show too much because I do think that, the game is short, but also it's a game that really is about the joy of figuring a lot of these things out for yourself. We don't want to spoil it. So yeah, definitely well worth checking out if you like things like Journey or other light puzzlers, light platforming, especially games with good vibes about great music and locations and nature, then definitely worth a look.